And we are live. Hi, Ed.
Hello. Hey,
So
everyone.
today we're going to talk about chapter 3. We have a video with one of the authors that we've worked with, Jacopo Romei, who's now finishing his book, and also about chapter 4. We talked about it last week, but that video isn't available. So apologies for that. That was our screw up. But we're going to talk a little bit about chapter 4 and a new angle that Ed came up with. Is that all, Ed, for today?
Yeah, and we want to talk a little bit more about the testimonial style of testimonials, how to get them towards the end of
Oh
the
yeah,
video.
that's a great point actually, because you told me I sent you the video I had recorded with Jacopo, and you told me that okay, that's not really a testimonial. So I want you to explain what is a testimonial and what to take into account when getting testimonials. If you're going to record the video, then what to focus on, because I think that would be very useful for everyone watching as well as for me, because I need to turn that video into a testimonial, of course.
Right. Yeah. Great. So let's dive in.
So you watched the video. I recorded the video. It was about half an hour recording, and I edited out to a rough cut. So it's not the final cut. It's just something for us to work on. And that is about 8 minutes. So obviously, I understand 8 minutes is not what a testimonial is. That part I understand. But you told me in your feedback that okay, so this is not a testimonial. So explain to us, what did you see in that video that is not a testimonial? And if you had to go in and do something, what would make a video a testimonial?
Okay. So for the viewers who haven't watched that video yet, let me break down how I was seeing the video when I first played it. So to give you some context, that video is recorded as what we did, what you did basically in getting the book from like the beginning stage to the end stage, and it's kind of an uh, uh, a statement of the steps you took, and that's what we are. A lot of it is what we are doing in 48-hour method as well. So that's how I see the video was structured. So step by step, one step at a time. So you did step one, this, step two, this, step two, this, step four, this. This is how we did it. And in that video, it's like 30 seconds of video or 1 minute of video, and then the step flashes back on a text.
Yeah, that's
So
that's the rough edit. So it doesn't
yes, okay,
necessarily need to be there in the end, or it won't be like that if it is.
yeah,
So it is true. So the video is kind of the essence of an interview with Jacopo. It has all the steps in the right order. So that was one important part, and then it has kind of in the middle some of the insights and value that Jacopo got as an author from going through that process. So that's what the rough cut is. It's something that we can use as a bonus, for example. So we can give that to people that want to listen to the process from the author's perspective. And it really is about what he experienced in that 48-hour workshop, and a little
okay,
bit more. So
great,
that's what it is.
yeah,
But
great,
there is in the middle, and this is where I want your help, because there's in the middle there are statements of, I did this and I got this. And there's one thing he says is that once he did the 48-hour workshop, it totally changed the structure of the book. So he had originally written it in Italian. Kind of that was his first attempt at writing the book in his native language, and then he was writing it in English, and that's what the interview was about. It's the English version, and he said that because we focused on the needs of the reader, he totally changed the structure because of the 48-hour work method. So that's kind of the one of the values, I think, that explains what he got out of this 48-hour method.
right. I get that. However, this video is like the action scene. So you right from the beginning, you jump into the action scene, what was happening, what you were doing, and then there are a couple of action sequences, and then it just ends uh, in the action itself. So it's more like an action sequence without a context. So it makes sense that if people are reading the chapter And after reading the chapter, we ask them, or within the chapter, we ask them to go and watch that video. They will go and watch it, and it will make perfect sense. But if not, if this is not the sequence, they don't read the context in the chapter first and then go and watch the video. And I see that video more as a case study rather than testimonial. And there's a big reason how testimonial is like are different from case studies. So this is, if we put this in front of an audience that doesn't know what they're getting into, they will have no idea what happened, even though we are covering all the points that we are teaching them. They won't get it. They don't know which ones are important, which ones are not, and what happens, because they don't know the whole sequence yet. um, but if it's coming from the chapter only, then it's not a testimonial, it's a case study. And as a case study, that's okay. I mean, the video has, I mean, other than the text overlay and the text size and this and that, like small cosmetic changes, it does its purpose very well. It shows people that somebody used this method, they get the result, um, and kind of confirm to them that they, uh, if they repeat the process in some or the other way, they will get similar results, considering they'll do the work.
So,
So if that
what is
makes sense.
then? Let's break it down for our audience then, Ed. What is a testimonial? What are the key aspects of getting a testimonial? Either in writing or in video.
Okay, so here's the statistics that's presented by Google, that in 2020 alone, there is expected to be around $2 billion going to scammers. So it's, people faking things is a big industry. It's like 2 billion is a big amount. The role of testimonial is one of the 7 big elements that help people either make a purchase or build trust with you, and that do it in a couple of ways. The three main of them are: one, they show people that you're legit, you're a real person, or and you do what you say you do. And this is, testimonial is mostly intended for people who are new to you. People who are not new to you, they don't really need testimonials, um, because it's just to build that trust for the first time, or a new product that they have never imagined, or never thought is there. Or maybe if there's too much of competition, then whoever is shouting loudest will get the attention. So testimonial help you shout louder, if it makes sense. So it's I see it as marketing and sales tool only, if it makes sense.
Okay, so a testimonial is intended for people who are new to you and as a marketing and sales tool. So, but what does that look like in practice? Let's say you're preparing an interview with somebody who's used your services and is really happy with them. And how would you prepare those, satisfied customers to come in and share their experience in a way that it becomes a testimonial?
Yeah. Okay. Great. I think this is where a lot of people go wrong with testimonials. There are so many different types and ways people have recorded testimonials, but the best of them that I've saw are, um, the ones where, and this is a process that you cannot just ask somebody to give you testimonial. You have to control the whole, um, what they are saying in order to get the right testimonial. And this is why people are getting it wrong, because they need to know what to control. So the first thing is, a testimonial needs to paint a picture of what was the stage before the person took your service. First, they need to introduce that they are making a testimonial for you, or for a product, or for something that is relevant. Then dive into what was the situation before they used the testimony. And it's a perfect place to talk about the objection. Oh, uh, I was worried that your prices were too high, but then I took the plunge, and I took the service, and I could never go back to any other person. I've got this result, something like that, right? in some industries you cannot claim big results, but then there are other kind of results as well. Let me do an experiment, a thought experiment here. So let's say if you're recruiting a new team member in in your team, and since I have got that experience myself, and you ask me to create a testimonial for new people who are seeing your company for the first time, or the job advert, and you want to convince them to apply. So again, it's a call to action, an action you want them to take, and you want to stand out compared to any other potential employers out there. So what I would say is, to begin with, hey, I'm making this test. I'm Ed Rich, and I'm making this testimonial for Oikosofi, or for Vasco Duarte. And if you are considering applying to work in Oikosofi, then I think you will find this video interesting. And in my experience, when I was working with different entrepreneurs, what I don't know. To be honest, in my case, I was really impressed by your leadership style, or the way you manage your company and the team. So for me, that was giving me a lot of, like, a lot of companies that I've worked with before working with you were a bit chaotic. People did not know what they are getting into, what they're working on. People were randomly coming up with ideas, and then suddenly those ideas were becoming, oh yeah, let's go and do it. But it's not the same. Like when I started working in Oikosofi, I realized for the first time that there's a better way. And like, you can come up with lots of ideas, but then you also have a process of prioritizing them. So that takes away all the stress and the randomness out of my work. So it pretty much became very predictably, I could predictably see that, like, how far in time I have before I touch on that project or something like that. And that totally gave me a stress-free lifestyle choices that I took on further in almost every venture I do, and I compare almost all experiences with this as a benchmark for me. Um, I'm making up, and it's true, but like, it's not prepared. So, but it gives you an idea. So I've painted a picture what it was my life before, like chaotic. Painted a picture that working with you and the leadership style, and it's a pleasant experience working in this kind of structured thinking, and like, organizing your thoughts and ideas into priority and priorities and stuff that helped me. So this handles one kind of objection, and the objection, people who have bad work experiences before, this testimonial will appeal to them. Who have bad bosses, who have bad stressful teams to work in, this testimonial will appeal to them. So that's what this a piece of testimonial is supposed to do. It obliterate an objection with a proof that somebody has done it, somebody is there vouching for you. Like, I don't know if it makes sense to you, but this is rough structure.
So if I have to go back into Jacopo's video and think about what are potential testimonial material, what is potential testimonial material? So he says things like, nobody wants to write a book that nobody will buy, right? So that's one part of the objection you were just talking about. Then the other thing that he says is that, I mean, you can write a book that you want to write, but that will not help anyone, right? So that's another thing that he says. And then the other thing is the impact that he says, for example, is that after using the 48-hour method, he really completely changed the structure of the book, and he liked the method of working through objections. Objection is actually one of the content items we talk about in how to write the book, and it becomes kind of a fuel for us to write the book. So that's what I saw from the video that might become testimonial material. But then, if I understand you correctly, we would have to do that as a one statement, more like 30 seconds, when I started working with Vasco, here's what I had learned from not using the method. Here's what the problems were when not using the method. Then I did this method, and then I understood X and I got the value Y. Is that
Exactly.
what you mean?
Yes, that's pretty much. I think that's a structure you can use everywhere. So if I get a chance to go and reshoot that testimonial, I don't know if you've covered that part or not, but I would ask things like, or I would say, I would include things like, here's what I did before I met you. I published this book in Italian, and these were the results. But I was not happy with them, so I thought like there could be a better way. I had a chat with Vasco, and we came up with this idea of implementing 48 hours method into my book. So to me, it looks appealing, but I have never tried something like that before. I took a chance anyway, and I did that, and I'm glad that I did, because here's what we got in the end, that the kind of result, or maybe the ease of the process, or the better structure of the book, because SMIQ is involved. Like, definitely, I mean, there's so many things that like could be described as a result, and we don't need to mention every result if it's a testimonial. Even one result which handles one objection is good enough.
So, but what you're saying actually, if we now turn this back into the 48-hour method, what you're saying is that the testimonial should have a specific avatar as well, because the benefit you're going to choose as well as the objection you're going to
Yeah,
choose will need to have a focus. So, in this case, the avatar is of course the person who is considering to write the book, right?
yeah,
And together with Jacopo, we can actually come up with a testimonial that describes the pain of writing the book alone,
yeah,
right? Like how difficult it is, and
yeah,
the importance of having customer feedback, and then the benefit of using the 48-hour method that includes SMIQ, empathy map, story map, because that allows him to then go and discover what actually works in the market rather
yeah,
than trying to come up with whatever 200 pages
yeah,
that then
yeah.
throw it to the market and see if it sticks, which is what unfortunately many authors still do.
It's, in reality, a testimonial is a video sales letter recorded by your your past customer or past user. So what we just discussed is just that. So we are making the user of that service make a convincing case on a video or in written form to to use that service to solve that specific problem. Now, it may not be that specific problem, it may be a generic problem, but it's still okay. And you're right that it follows a customer avatar. One testimonial can totally emotionally appeal to one customer avatar and be ignored by the other. We all have experienced this. We watch testimonial that just doesn't do anything for us. It doesn't like make us change any of our opinion. But there are other cases where you listen to a testimonial and like, oh yeah, this person is like me. If he can get result, I can get result as well, and that's convincing.
So this is actually interesting because I think we are going to have to use this in chapter 11. We need to give people um, a format, a method to get testimonial for their book, right? Chapter
Yeah,
11 is where we talk about selling your book, and chapter 10 is about where we talk about market your book. So I think that the testimonial needs to be a tool, and even giving a script template for that, so that our readers can go and prepare for marketing and selling their book
yeah,
using the concept of a testimonial. For me, the testimonials are really important because they establish trust. I mean, you already talked about that, right? But for me, when I'm looking at a product, should I buy it? Should I not buy it? I always look at the testimonials because I want to see, did they get something that is relevant for me, right? So what would that be as an example? Everybody will claim they give results, so that the results don't matter, right? That somebody's selling something promises you results, that's the bar, right? That's the beginning. If they don't promise results, you're not interested anyway. So the results are always there, but for me, the testimonials help us to go into what kind of results, right? What is the real benefit for you as a consumer of that service or product? So I think that will become kind of a key aspect of how we talk about the book is the testimonials. And Amazon started really this trend on the book side with the reviews, customer reviews, right? And then they even have like verified buyer of the book as a way to give more credibility to certain reviews. So that, I think that's the key. At least that's how I think.
Credibility is the key word for testimonials. Now, there are some cases where you don't have your product out to the market yet, and you may want to include your testimonial, not talking about the market, but talking about you as a person, and that's perfectly all right. So you can have a product page, but the testimonial talk only about you. Perfectly fine. Again, credibility. It's giving you credibility. It's like, okay, if not service, then the other thing people have in their mind is whether I want to work with this guy, whether I want to learn from this guy, whether I want to do anything with this guy. Is it worth my time or energy or money? And those kind of testimonials does work still. And that's why you will see a lot of personal branding sites have like, oh, as seen on different logos of different, let's say, conferences or popular blogs and things like that, because they all tiny, they're kind of a testimonial. I mean, secret, like not secret, silent testimonials. So they're saying like, this person is legit. This person knows what he's talking about.
Yeah,
We
others have
trusted him.
vetted this person, right? Others have looked into it. Others have certified. Others have agreed. Others have believed. Others have benefited, right? So that's the kind of the message we're implicitly putting out with those logos or certification stamps, whatever that might be.
Yeah. So here's another thing about testimonials that a lot of people miss. When we talk about testimonials, it's often talked as if is the most important thing. That's not true. It's one of the 7 big things which needs to be there to influence a buyer to buy. It's just one of the 7. If you don't have testimonial, don't put it. It's fine. It's just 1/7 less chance. I mean, there are other ways to build credibility, and that could be your copy, the way you're handling the objections, that the core message and stuff. I mean, that do a lot of heavy lifting itself. So you can definitely promote yourself, promote your service, promote your book without a testimonial. But if you have a testimonial, then follow this structure, because whether you follow or not, it will almost be the same effort, like for you to get the testimonial from your client. And why
and
not
actually
get
the
get a good
structure
one?
helps to get to the point, right? So that we're not lost. And as it happened to me, so I ended up recording about 27 minutes with Jacopo, out of which 8 minutes are relevant outside the context of that interview, right? I mean, I could publish the whole interview, but nobody will listen to 27 minutes unless they have a good reason to. So we eventually cut that down to about 8 minutes or so from all of that kind of content discussion and so on. So I think that having a structure is very important, and I wish I had that structure before I started recording, because then I could record 2 parts of the video, one which would be the testimonial part and one which would be the descriptive, the process part, which is already there now, but of course then the crisp testimonial is still missing.
Yeah. So I have got a list of questions that I send to people when usually when I ask for testimonials, and especially video testimonials. And people are able to use that script to give me like from 1 minute to 3 minute long testimonials. So, and I've used it for like as simple things as just like when people come on a call with me, like in case of consulting services, free consultation, if they enjoyed, even if they did not buy from me, if they enjoyed the process, give me a testimonial about that process. So what I do is that then whenever I put up a sales page to invite people to come on a call with me as a consultant, I put that testimonial there. I have got a couple of them that tell people like, hey, you're not going to waste your time coming and talking with me, because that's the biggest concern, objection people have for that particular problem. Like, oh, if I want to come on a call with this guy, he will just sell me, right? He's just going to pitch me. And those testimonials are telling that he did not pitch me. He educated me and he opened my eyes about marketing. I mean, Vasco, you remember when we had the first consultation call? I still remember it. When we were having first discussion about the strategy, how your strategy should be. And I could see and I could feel that you totally enjoyed the process of visualizing the strategy of how we will implement the marketing and stuff. And that's what it does. Testimonials does. Yeah. And that's why I think another point to add here, I'm considering the video that you have recorded a good case study video instead of a testimonial. And the big difference is it's not recorded from the structure of marketing and sales perspective, but it's recorded from a structure of proving that the system works. It has worked before. So it's a good case study.
Excellent. All right. So case study this. It's also a very important video for us in chapter 3, because Jacopo's case study is what will kind of give authors voice to chapter 3, right? Because chapter 3 is now written from my perspective, what the process is and why it is important. But then now I will, intermingle Jacopo's phrases in that chapter 3 so that we actually get the author's voice, so that the people, when they go through chapter 3, they don't just read the explanation, they actually read what an author said about each of those steps in the process. So we'll definitely do that. But we were also going to talk about chapter 4 today. We talked about chapter 4 last week, the video that is missing right now. But while thinking about it, you said you came up with a new angle. So Ed, walk us through that. Maybe just a very short recap of what we had talked about last week, and then let's dive into what that new angle is that you thought about. So for context, chapter 4 is consider and decide what is the topic for your book, where we talk about, establishing and defining your passion, defining your community, defining what you have experience in and could be topics for the book, and ultimately coming to a decision on what is this book about from many of the things that we have experience with and could write about. So walk us through what we talked about last week, and then what is the new angle?
Yeah, cool. So with this chapter, people are entering into part 2 of the book. Part 2 of the book is where rubber meets the road. They have to actually sit down and do the work. And we are showing them how that work is done. And the first thing where people get stuck is, what should be my book? Like, what is the topic of my book? What should it be? And based on, again, SMIQ, we know what type of, how people are asking this question. People are asking this in different ways. So we plotted down a list of items that we thought that if people will do, or at least we have used at some point in our own work, that has worked, and we can replicate that process every single time. Those things. So they were making a list of your passion, what you're passionate about, make an extensive list of things. Okay, before I jump into that, this is going to be a chapter heavy on exercises. So all of these things that I'm going to talk about, they're different exercises. So exercise like listing down your passions, listing down what type of communities you want to be part of, what type of communities you want to serve as your tribe. Then write down what experiences you have, and what are the things that you naturally read, and things you're interested in, and stuff like that. And then what we wanted to do is set up a goal, and based on that goal, mix and match and pick and choose the topic, and create an impact map from that. Now, when I sat down last week, after the last week's call, I started to go into details of these, and then I realized that this approach may work. It's worked for us, but it may not work for somebody who's starting authoring their book for the first time. And the reason is because if you start too broad, like you start with your passions first, there are so many angles that you, like your future career as a speaker could go into, right? Like there are too many directions. If you're a person like me, like you can totally go off track and then go very far in off track route. So what we want to do is more work like you, in the sense that we start from the end first. So we already know the goal, or broad goal. The goal is you want to be invited as a speaker. So we know that, and we begin from there. So what I came up with is what kind of conferences. This is step one. What kind of conferences you see yourself speaking at? So once you imagine, like, okay, I want to speak in these kind of conferences, list them down. Do your research, internet research, list like 3 to 10 conferences down, depend on the size and the density of your niche. And especially the ones where you would like in the future, you would like to be invited. Whether you get invited or not, that's irrelevant at this point. You like to be invited. Then make a list of the topics that they are covering. Whether you know anything about them or not, doesn't matter. List anything that you can list. Irrelevant to your experience, perfectly fine. Just list them. List everything they're talking about. Like and see, you can see we are trying to find the common patterns, and also for every conference, there range of different personas or avatars that go and attend those conferences. So you may want to take a guess on that as well. Okay, there are like CEOs who go there, CIO go there, line managers go there, and stuff like that. You may want to list those type of personas possible, and it could be as simple as just one line each. You don't have to go into detail. So list down as many type of people and in those conferences. So this way, by the way, you're also getting the tribe you may wanna address in the future. So instead of inventing it based on your passion, that could totally take you in a different direction. Then what you do is, after you have all these topics listed down, all the type of people who come and attend to those, listen to those topics in those conferences, now you match it with your interest. Now you look back, like you make this is the point where you make a list of everything that you are interested in, even the things that are not covered in these conferences. That's perfectly fine. And see, and this is a common, next step is a common sense steps. Try to see like which of those interests, even if they're not covered in these conferences, could be interesting to the big chunk of people who are attending those conferences,
And
who
the
you want
conference
to address.
organizers, because don't forget that conference organizers are
Yes,
often
okay.
looking for other topics within the same areas.
Yes, so I put up a note here that there are actually two types of customers you're going to serve with your book, not one. The two types. One is the conference organizers, and two is the one that I'm coming up with right now. So the people who attend those conferences, because your book will teach something to the people who attend the conferences, and because of that, those people are the same people who the conference organizers want to come and attend their conference. They will want to invite you. So this is like a two-step customer process. So if it makes sense. So then
So what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that in chapter 4 we're going to start from where your avatars might be. Then we're going to find out what the topics are that are discussed in those conferences, because the goal is to speak at conferences, and that's clear. And then we're going to use that to seed our own thinking about what's the one topic that the book is going to be about. And of course, the topic is yours, it's not theirs. Their perspective, the conference organizers, the conferences, and the audience, just validate which of the topics that you are going to write about is the most relevant for you to achieve your goal of speaking at conferences.
Yeah. And a common mistake to avoid here is to try to be unique, in a sense that try to come up with a topic that
Yeah, nobody's talking about, right?
nobody's talking about. So you may combine couple of topics together, or combine the topics with your personal interest together to give them a completely new angle, or come up with a completely new angle to the same problem that others are talking about as well. And once you see this pattern, you will also see like, okay, there are things that everyone struggle with, or from your SMIQ that may happen after this, and then you may have to come back to this step to iterate you're
And
picking the
iteration
customer.
is something we do all the time. Actually, that's a great point, because
Yeah,
what we do in chapter 4 is to get the topic started. And then when we learn more, we improve the topic. But you said one thing that is really important, and I think it bears highlighting here, which is that do not try to be talking about topics that no one is talking
yeah.
about.
You,
Rather, pick a
yeah,
topic that a lot of people are talking about, and put your own perspective, your own unique perspective on that topic. And the reason for that is that your customers only talk about the stuff that interests them, and if they don't talk about it, it probably does not interest them.
yeah,
So
yeah,
when people try to be unique, and some people succeed at that, of course, but those are rare. When people try to be unique, what happens is that they bump into the wall of disinterest,
yeah.
right? Oh, look at me, I'm so interesting because I'm talking about something that no one else talks about, and people go like, yeah, there's a reason why people don't talk about that.
And even if there's not a reason, I mean, they should be talking about, there's this danger that the conference organizer will see it super risky to invite you, that like nobody will attend your session, and they will have like, it will be embarrassing for them.
Yeah, and
People
that's,
skip sessions.
by the way, that's also one of the reasons why in chapter 8, we talk about how to test everything, right?
Yeah,
Like test the topic, test the angle, test the audience, test the how appealing the topic is to conference organizers. We're talking about testing everything, because
yeah,
we don't actually know what works. We just know the process that allows us to find
yeah,
what works in the market,
yeah, yeah. And you can use this process anytime to come up with as many topics as you want. Like it will never fail you
even for
in
blog
that sense.
posts.
Yeah, exactly, and you can test it anywhere. So
I like this angle, Ed. I think this is really cool. First of all, I like the fact that it starts from the wanting to be invited to conferences. I like the fact that it talks about your research into what others are talking about, and you might already have that. Great. If you don't, then you just do the research. It talks about the aspect, which I think is very important in the 48-hour book method, which is the aspect of finding validation in people's actions, not asking them to validate what you think is already a good idea, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
look at what they do and they say for hints on what they care about, rather than ask them, do you care about X? So, and that's
yeah,
very important, because people very often don't really realize what they care about, but they intuitively know what they don't care about. So they spend time doing the stuff they care. So
yeah,
listen to what they do, listen to what they talk about. There is one question though in my mind, and I think it would be good to discuss this, because it also illustrates a very important aspect of the writing process, which is chapter 5 is about finding our audience. So, of course, in chapter 4, you introduce the concept of find audience. So we now need to figure out what is it that in chapter 5 we develop further that builds on chapter 4, but goes further in developing that, in finding where my audience is, kind of defining what my tribe is, and where my audience is. So did you think about that?
um there's some there are many ways. I think chapter 4, this point in chapter 4, that like the fact that you're picking the conferences, that also is one of those methods that should be covered in the next chapter, where to find, like, those conferences are the places to find your audience. But then there are other people who also come to those conferences, so that's why the exercise of listing down what type of people are coming, and then later on picking and choosing, okay, I want to serve these ones, and I want to ignore the remaining ones, because what you say no to is as important as what you say yes to, or more. So that's one of those things covered. Now there are other ways. There are online communities. There are not even communities. In some cases, there are other authors that these people read books about. So and you can leverage it in many different ways. Maybe in terms of collaboration. Maybe have a public chat on Twitter, like a talk with that author, and then like their audience will see you exist, and then they will also come and follow you. So there are many ways. Because I did not structurally thought about it for this call, I don't have everything in my mind yet. But once I start to list down all the things that I have seen working, I think we'll have a comprehensive list, and that by no means will be limited. Like there are so many different ways to find people. Another example is paid advertisement. I'm pretty good with paid advertisement. I've done a lot of experiments with that. With paid advertisement, it's super easy to find where people hang out that you want to address. One experiment that I did was I was trying to establish a personal brand in a personal development niche. Now I've never been in that niche as a brand or a content creator or something. This is totally first time I'm entering that now. I understand that niche because I've served clients who were in that niche. So what I did was I realized, like, okay, who's the most famous person in this niche? Tony Robbins. Okay, let's do this. I did an experiment. I found a wholesaler, picked up the book from Tony Robbins, and gave it away as one of my campaigns. Hey, if you sign my community, I will give you this book for free. Just pay shipping and handling. And it's like 3 books, not one. So it's like a big parcel, like this big parcel. So it makes sense. And people who bought those are all 100% of them are interested in personal development. So that's a way, commercial way, to find where my people are hanging out and bring them together here in
Yeah, actually, that's
my
true.
niche.
The messages, and in my case, so we have a podcast at Oikosofi, which is the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, which is, of course, to our audience. That's the whole point of the podcast. I find that the topics you talk about, the messages you use attract people to you, right? In business world and coaching, we talk about the law of attraction, right? You put out what you want to come back in. And what I have found is that exactly that is that the moment you start using certain associations, like you talked about doing a promotion on a certain author, the moment you start talking about certain associations, the people who are interested come to you. And then, of course, if that's your avatar, perfect, because that's the people you want to strike up a conversation with and produce content for. So
Yeah,
that's also very important aspect, maybe to talk about in chapter 4 too, right?
yeah,
Because of course we're going to talk more about that in chapter 7, where we talk about sorry, chapter 8, where we talk about the testing and how do we test what has appeal and what doesn't. But that's maybe something to refer to, which is that listen to or look for places where the people whom you already consider great authors are, because that's probably in your topic, obviously, which is probably a place where customers of your book and your consulting services will also hang
yeah,
around. And I wanted to refer to something that this is not my invention. What you're describing has been talked about by many people. For me, the most interesting name for this process is Amy Hoy's sales safari. That's what she calls this process, sales safari.
mm,
And she calls these places where your customers hang out as water holes, right? Like imagine you're doing a safari in Africa. Where are you going to see the animals? At the water holes, right? That's where they gather. That's where they are, right?
yeah,
And she uses that metaphor, which I think is brilliant, also to illustrate the fact that those water holes already exist. And if you know where they are, you will find your customers.
yeah. And every person belongs to many different niches, and they come together for one topic or one niche, and then they go and come together somewhere else for a different niche. So people will go to church to pray every Sunday. That's one niche, spirituality. And then they come out and go to party with different people who are interested in the same evening, like somewhere else.
Or
That's
go
more
play
like,
golf.
oh yeah, or go and play golf. Like not everyone will go there, but you cannot go to church and give a speech about golf. It's
Yeah,
just a mismatch. The same people, or maybe many people are the same, but it's a message mismatch, and that's what happened when you put an advertisement on billboards. Like, it's
yeah,
message
in the
mismatch.
wrong water hole.
Yeah, exactly.
All right,
So
Ed, this was an insight filled episode. Man, that's a lot of stuff here. This is
I
another e-course module. Well, two actually. The
yeah.
testimonial plus the finding your audience and defining your topic based on that.
Yeah, yeah. For businesses who are fairly, like, who get some traction, testimonial could be even a course in itself. I've seen there are courses about testimonials, and it can be taught.
Absolutely. Thanks, Ed. I'll see you next week.
All right. Thank you.